Now it's interesting to know that it exports $11.5 billion in goods, most of it being non-knitted women's suits or even women's undergarments. Woo! However, the biggest export is 12%, and that is tea. As a matter of fact, tea is so popular from Sri Lanka that it is the largest exporter of tea in the entire world. Yeah, I'm sorry Boston, and I'm sorry China, you guys got nothing. But let's bump over to its imports because, well, it's a little different than its exports. First of all, their imports equal $21.4 billion, and it is progressively growing. But the biggest being refined petroleum being around 12%, but it's also fascinating to know that 11% of that is planes, helicopters, and spacecraft. Now, Sri Lanka has a lot of waterfalls. As a matter of fact, most of its power is all hydroelectric. Now, it's been said that Sri Lanka has the biggest waterfall density, but 58 of those waterfalls are over 10 meters high, with the Bambarakanda Falls being the tallest, coming in at 263 meters. And it is one beautiful falls. I mean, this is a place that I would love to go check out. Now, Sri Lanka's also got some pretty interesting names. First of all, it's called the Teardrop of India. I mean, look at it, it even looks like a teardrop. But it's also known as the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. Probably because not only is it a beautiful place, but it's got a lot of really amazing beaches. Like, you telling me you don't want to spend a day on that beach? Yeah, I know you. Now, back in 2012, they did a census and they found they have over 20 million people, which is pretty tight for a land mass of 65,610 kilometers squared. Now, Sri Lanka also had the world's first female prime minister. This is Sirimavo Bandaranaike. Now, she was in office for such a long time. She definitely defeats any American president. Now, at one point, Sri Lanka was known as Ceylon, and this was when it was under the control of the British Empire. Now, in her first term, Sirimavo, she was prime minister on July 21st, 1960, and she ran until March 25th, 1965. Now, her second time coming in was May 29th, 1970, and it went all the way till May 27th, 1972, but her position became abolished because the British pretty much pulled out, and that is when Ceylon became Sri Lanka. After that, she became Prime Minister of Sri Lanka and remained it until 1977. Now, she did do a third run in 1994 and ended in 2000. That is a long time for somebody to be in charge. I mean, that's a lot of terms. Now, Sri Lanka has 11 universities, and because of that, Sri Lanka has the highest literacy rate in all of South Asia. According to a census done in 2010, 98.1% of its country is considered literate. Now, when it comes to communication, the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Company is the oldest radio station in all of Asia. Now, it was started by Edward Harper in 1923. It originally started off as a test run, but eventually it became Radio Ceylon. Now, the station is broadcasted all over the world to places like Europe and South Asia. They broadcast in Sinhalese, Tamil, and Hindi, and they are still alive today. Sri Lanka also has one of the highest road densities in the entire world, with over 100,000 kilometers of road. Now, although they do have a train system which was left over from the British rule, the primary form of transportation is via road, with buses being the form of primary public transportation. So there you have it, guys. That is some awesome facts on Sri Lanka. But before I get out of here, I got this last fact for you because I feel it brings out the environmentalist in all of us. Sri Lanka has made some pretty cool world records, but one of the most interesting ones is the sacred fig or bow tree, Ficus religiosa, and it is the world's oldest planted tree. Now, the sacred bow tree is a 2,300-year-old sacred tree that is known to be planted by human hands. It was planted in 288 BC, and it has some relations to Buddha himself. This is because the mother of this tree was the one that Buddha was sitting under when he gained enlightenment. First of all, what makes Sri Lanka great? Well, it was the first country in all of Asia to grant women women the right to vote. This happened in 1931, just 3 years after the United Kingdom granted the same rights. And because of it, it allowed for the first female to be voted as Prime Minister, which we did talk about that in our last video. But it is quite amazing to see that only 30 years later you pretty much had a female running the entire country, and for such a long time. Now for this next fact, I gotta admit I'm being a little selfish here because it's talking about Horace Walpole, which, you know, my name's Walpole, so who knows, I might be related to him. Now he was the man that coined the term serendipity when writing to an old friend. But the funny part is that term just came from an old name for Sri Lanka. And that name was Serendip. I don't know where it came from because I only know it as Ceylon. Now, if you ever plan to visit Sri Lanka, you really gotta check out Kalpitiya, because it's a place that's not just pretty, but you can get the opportunity to do some serious dolphin and whale watching. And it's known throughout the world for being a place where you can spot a lot of blue whales. And the reason for this is because, well, there's not only a lot of reefs there, but it is also considered an animal sanctuary. And when it comes to water, well, unfortunately, we gotta talk about one really horrific event that happened in Sri Lanka in 2004. And that is when Sri Lanka was hit from a giant tsunami in the Indian Ocean on December 26, 2004. The infamous result of this natural disaster ended with 30,196 deaths in Sri Lanka alone. And not only that, but because of this natural disaster, over 1 million people were displaced from their homes. For example, in the town of Talwada, the holiday train, the Queen of the Sea, was struck by the tsunami, and unfortunately 1,700 people died on board. In the aftermath of the destruction, Sri Lanka received donations from its own cricket teams as well as popular teams from Australia, England, and India, and it became an international issue, gaining help from countries from all around the world. Now moving away from the dark spots, let's talk about the Sigiriya Rock Fortress. Many do consider this amazing historic monument an eighth wonder of the world. It is an ancient old fortress that was selected by King Kasiyapa between 447 and 495 BC. But when the king died, the fortress was abandoned, and currently it stands at 660 feet, and not only is it a popular place with tourists, but it also became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1982. And speaking about heritage sites, perhaps we should talk about the world's first hospital. It is rumored that Sri Lanka was the first country to have a hospital for humans and even animals. Located in Mahintale, an area, a mountain peak, it is sometimes referred to as Sigiri. And this mountain peak was the place where Buddhism was first born in Sri Lanka. And the hospital itself was simply just a bath where people bathed in medicinal oil. Although Sri Lanka is a beautiful country, its military history is known for its great prowess. And the Sri Lanka Armed Forces may have only been around officially for 18 years. The country has had evidence of at least 2,000 years of military service. But the amazing thing about its current military is it has a pretty balanced gender ratio. In 2010, it was reported that there were over 167,000 males in service, with over 162,500 females fighting for their country. Now, a great country can't be great without its great donating programs. And it has a donation program that is known throughout the entire world. And that is the Eye Donation Society, which began in 1958 by Deshwan Bandhu Dr. Hudson Silva. And back then, he was just simply collecting corneas for transplants, but now it's grown to over 450 branches with a manpower of 15,000 people. And it is so popular, over 90,000 people throughout the world have signed up to have their eyes donated upon the event of death. And this program is so popular that it is even recognized by the United Nations. Now, although the military and people of Sri Lanka have seen many good years and days, they've also had their dark years and decades. The old Ceylon force was present during the Second World War, but it was most prominent during the Four Elam Wars, also known as the Sri Lanka Civil War. This war lasted over 25 years, beginning on July 23, 1983, ending on May 18, 2009. And it was a long fight between the Sri Lankan government and the rebel force known as the LTTE, who were eventually defeated. However, the civil war took the lives of approximately 80,000 to 100,000 people. But now with the war long gone and over, Sri Lanka focuses on building opportunities for its people and of course memories for its tourists. And the tourism of Sri Lanka is growing fast. To give you an idea, a year after the war in 2010, Sri Lanka had 654,000 people visit the country. But only 6 years later in 2016, that has grown to over 2 million people. With extensive waterfalls and coastlines over 1,600 kilometers, there is much to do in this country. But one of the funnest things to do is surfing. Beaches like Hikkaduwa, Talela South, and Marissa are known throughout the world as some of the best locations to surf, and it is something that you might want to check out.
The largest and a very important city in Sri Lanka. Colombo has one of the world's largest artificial harbors, so it's no surprise that most of the country's foreign trade passes through the port there. Some of the top industries in Colombo are gem cutting, food and tobacco processing, metalwork, chemical manufacturing, as well as jewelry. So as you can see right off the bat, that the city is a very important one. It also had ancient recognition. More and more people, well, nowadays around the world are becoming familiar with the culture of Sri Lanka, and it continues to grow in popularity as a tourist destination. But did you know that long ago, the city of Colombo, Sri Lanka, was on the radar of many other nations? With its massive supply of cinnamon and a large natural harbor along east-west trade routes, Colombo was known and valued by the Greeks, the Persians, the Indians, the Romans, Arabs, and Chinese traders more than 2,000 years ago. For fact number 8, let's talk about the name Colombo. You're probably wondering where the city got its name from. For me, when I was saying Colombo, I was thinking Colombia. It's like some Spanish origin, but let me break down the facts for you. The name Colombo was first introduced by the Portuguese in 1505, and the name Colombo is believed to be derived from the classic Sinhalese name Kolontota, meaning port of the river Kelani. Now the Kelani River, by the way, is a 145 kilometer long or 90-mile long river in Sri Lanka, and it's the 4th longest river in the entire country. It stretches from the Sri Pada mountain range to Colombo city, and the Kelani River also flows through Colombo and provides 80% of its drinking water. For fact number 7, we're looking at some world records. 2 Guinness World Records to be exact. They were achieved in front of a very excited crowd of people inside one of Colombo's public parks on December 22nd, 2012. A Sri Lankan man by the name of Sanath Bandara, he put on 257 t-shirts, and this allowed for 2 records to be broken. The records were the most t-shirts ever worn and the most t-shirts put on within 1 hour. Like, just look at those photos. How is that even possible, guys? Next up, at number 6, let's talk about Mount Lavinia. Dehiwala Mount Lavinia is the largest suburb of the city of Colombo, and it covers 2,109 hectares. It sits just south of the Colombo Municipal Council area and is separated from it by the Dehiwali Canal. Dehiwali Mount Lavinia is one of Colombo's most peaceful and laid-back suburbs, filled with great seafood restaurants on the Golden Beach, and is named after Lavinia, who was a gypsy woman who had a secret romantic affair with one of Sri Lanka's governors. For fact number 5, we gotta look at Petta. There's a place in Colombo called Petta, which is a maze of streets where you can find all sorts of products and goods and resources. The Petta neighborhood is famous for the Petta Market, which is a series of shops and markets. And there you'll find all types of things, from colorful textiles, gold and silver, as well as ancient artifacts, and of course, you know, daily essential items that you need for your life, everyday living. Whatever you're looking for in Colombo, it is found in Petta. It's definitely a must visit for anyone that is going to the country of Sri Lanka. Fact number 4 was also pretty surprising to me. There's actually no international airport in the city. The common misconception is that the Bandara International Airport is in Colombo, but it's actually in Katunayake. And this city is about 30 minutes to an hour from Colombo, depending on what mode of transportation you use. Now, this confusion appears to happen in many cases because the airport is also commonly known as Colombo International Airport. But no, as popular and as famous as the city is, there's no international airport specifically located in it. Colombo is also divided into 15 divisions. These are administrative sub-units, and they each have names, but they are just simply referred to as Colombo 1, Colombo 2, and so on. The 15 numbered areas of Colombo are divided for purposes of postal services, and each area has its own history, purpose, and feel to it. Colombo 2, for example, is known as Slave Island, which was where slaves were held during the Dutch and Portuguese colonial periods. But today, it is a busy commercial area and has several government offices located in that area. Perhaps we can do a video just on the different areas of Colombo, but I guess we'll save that for another episode. All right, moving on to fact number 2. There's a temple in Colombo called the Gangarama Vihara, and it is perhaps the most popular temple in the country. The temple is fully decorated with brass work, stone carvings, and other Buddhist artwork. And the cool thing about it is it also has a museum within it. There are also a lot of specifically religious items, including a massive sacred tree in the center of the complex. And nearby is the temple's most sacred of all its relics. And this is believed to be a lock of the Buddhas here that was donated to it by a temple in Bengal. Now we end off with fact number 1, and this takes us to Gali Face Green. Often known simply as Gali Face, this is a half a kilometer stretch of land that faces the Indian Ocean. Now, it's a very scenic place, and it serves as a source of entertainment for tourists of Colombo and also its residents. Its beach is lined with various different shacks and booths that sell all sorts of food and drink. And the Gali Face is also minutes from major locations like the President's House, the Navy headquarters, and the Colombo Hilton. The Gali Face Green also hosted the world's tallest artificial Christmas tree. This thing was massive. This was on December 25th, 2016, and the tree is 72.1 meters, and that works out to be 263 feet and 6.58 inches tall. Yeah. Huge. So that brings us to the end of this episode. All right, guys, awesome hanging out with you in this episode. Really hope you found this video useful and entertaining. Sound off down below in the comment section anything that you want to comment on. And that's it for me, guys. Until the next episode, stay awesome, stay educated. I'll see you soon.